Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking to our guest, Ruhi Hamid, the filmmaker, about her films, about surrogacy and international trade affecting hundreds and thousands of people across the world. Yes, Ruhi, I asked you, is there some sort of figure that we can put on every single adoption and surrogacy?
Adoption for Americans can cost anything between $40,000 to $70,000, $80,000, depending on what the circumstances are and how many children they're adopting. This is the fees for the agency, but it's also to do with the fees of keeping the child in the orphanage until they're ready to pick up the child, airfares, you know, all sorts of paperwork. So the adoption agencies charge a lot of money to these people.
Right. But when you made these films, did you also investigate into the fate of these adopted children? What happens to them?
We did, actually. We did follow up with 2 kids who'd been adopted 3 years previous to our story starting. And, you know, if I'm honest, okay, these children, of course, they do have a really good life promised to them in America compared to what their lives would be like in the Congo. But that's not the point. The point is that these children most probably have parents in the Congo who think that their children are going abroad to study, and they're losing their children forever. And no parent actually wants to give away their child on that basis. They do it as a sacrifice, hoping that their child will have a better future. So, you know, I don't think we can quantify it, what their lives are like, because their lives, of course, will definitely be better in the States. They've got, you know, so much more of infrastructure, etc., education, everything. They've got more financial possibilities. So, yeah, their lives on that level are going to be better, but you don't know whether emotionally, but also their identity as black children growing up in America, which...
Have there been incidents where the real parents have come up and asked for their own children to come back to them?
Well, it's difficult because the chain is so long that the parent who has given up their child at one point of the chain, for them to track that chain down is impossible. During our filming, we did film with a couple who had given away their children through this false means, which is where they thought they were going off to study. And for them to track their children down was practically impossible. So it's very, very difficult. But what does happen is when these children grow up, when they get to the age of 18, they then begin to ask questions. And quite often it's actually the children who've managed to trace their parents down again.
Exactly. The control room, can we see one of the clips of Ruhi Hamid's documentaries, please?
Welcome to Russia.
That's how cold it is, look.
The largest country on Earth and home to nearly 150 million people.
Growing up as a kid in the 80s in London, Russia was painted as this weird, big baddie.
Now with Vladimir Putin well into his 3rd term as president, it's starting to feel like that again.
Pro-Russian rebels in eastern Ukraine.
Vladimir Putin has ignored the dark warnings from the West.
There's going to have to be a very different relationship between Britain and Russia.
The West has imposed tough sanctions against Russia.
Russia is responsible for the violence.
And relations are the frostiest since the Cold War. But this hasn't stopped an army of young Siberian models invading the West. And while the catwalk and magazine demand for these girls grow, I'm here where it all starts, at the castings.
My name is Lisa. I'm 13 years old. I'm from Siberia.
The dream starts young.
Some of these girls are as young as 13.
Very young. With thousands of Russian children starting model training almost as soon as they can walk.
Раз, два, три. Fashion.
But there's a darker side to the dream.
В России многие думают, что девочка-модель то же самое практически, что и проститутка.
If I were a parent, I don't know what I would do.
Я боюсь.
The right and the wrong is just so blurred.
So I'm going to find out just what it takes to make it in the West and leave Siberia behind.
She's a little pro, look, she's hitting the poses straight away. Excuse me, hello. Hi, is this your daughter? Yes. Ah, nice to meet you. Hello, Mum. Mum and Dad, right? Hello, lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you. How old is she?
6 old.
6 years old. Wow, so she's really young.
Just a generation ago, during Soviet times, there was virtually no modeling industry in Russia.
How do you look at models here in Russia? Because there are so many girls that want to do it.
Я отвечу за него, то что отношение к моделям как к девушкам легкого поведения на самом деле. Это казалось, что более доступные женщины, естественно, любой папа не хочет, чтобы его дочь была доступная для всех. Но я постаралась ему объяснить и привела, как раз оставила его на занятиях, чтобы он посмотрел, что там идет нагрузка хореографическая, то есть это растяжка, полностью поддержка физической формы. И дело по отношению к легкому поведению здесь никакого вообще абсолютно нету.
Why do you think that there are so many negative connotations when it comes to modeling?
Ну, наверное, у нас еще там в Советском Союзе это пропагандировалось именно телевидением, властями, то есть то, что это сравнивалось на уровне с проституцией.
Hello, what's your name? Zlata. How old are you, Zlata? You're 12.
We're giving them an opportunity in life to become someone, to do something more important.
So would you do
this?
this?
I mean, what would the girl do in Krasnoyarsk? At best, I mean, think of it. Or in Novosibirsk, you know, finish high school, go to college, have a diploma, and then do what? Go get a job for $500 a month, marry someone at a very young age, have a baby, most likely get divorced. This is what they're facing. That's the reality what they're facing.
What do you think the parents think about the role that the agency plays in their daughter's career?
The parents, of course, they want their children to be more successful in life than they have been. So they allow the girls to go to the West and, you know, become models. We have to understand one thing, that for a Russian to go abroad, in general, even as a tourist, is a huge advantage because they need visas, literally, to go anywhere. So it's a great opportunity for their daughters.
And a great basis for a business like Tigran's. But why?
Well, welcome back to London. From Russia.
From cold Russia to cold London.
Yes. What was the response of this film that...
I think it was...
When was this made?
This was made 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it was just very interesting for the audiences here to get an insight into life in Russia today.
Right.
You know, we hear a lot about Russia politically, etc., but we just wanted to get under the skin of ordinary people's lives there.
Right.
And the film that I made was about young teenage models. Mm-hmm. You know, it is a phenomena that some of the biggest supermodels at the moment are coming out of Russia, and in particular from Siberia.
Right.
And why Siberia? Mainly because they have this mix of the kind of Central Asian features mixed with the Slavic. So they have these beautiful tall figures with
High
nice cheekbones. And exactly. So they've got the best of both worlds. So we were just interested in why these young girls were going towards modeling, really.
Abroad, it's an impression that Russia is a difficult country and you can't get the permission to go around, film whatever you want to, take pictures anywhere. So what was your experience?
Well, things have changed quite a lot from the days of the Soviet Union, let's say, yeah, the Cold War. But it's still quite tough. I mean, you need paperwork. You have to really make sure you've got all your filming permissions sorted out.
Did they assign you minders?
No, they didn't assign us minders. So in that way it was quite open. And also, the story we were doing about teenage models wasn't really controversial, so we didn't need any minders. In fact, none of the films needed the minders. But there were dangers, not so much again in our film, but the film about the ultra-right wing. You know, they are quite dangerous people, and there were threats made towards Reggie a couple of times, especially when he was on a march. you know, it was quite a tough thing because these people were racists who saw Reggie as a lesser being because he's black. But in terms of our film, it was really to get into the mindset of young women. What are the opportunities there for young women? And we went there thinking that this is a very exploitative industry, which, you know, the fashion industry can be very exploitative. However, we found that actually this in some ways was liberating some of these young girls. Their lives in Siberia or in Russia are quite limited. Right. Putin might come across as this mighty Russia, but actually the ordinary people in Russia are living quite meager, plain lives. Right. And a lot of the women haven't got many opportunities for them. So I think for these girls to have the opportunity to travel abroad with their job as models, you know, using their looks and their body as a way of earning money, was kind of helpful for them. And I think that the young girls were actually very savvy. They knew that they could do it for a few years while they're young, while they've got the energy, they can see the world, and then they can save up enough money and maybe start up a business of their own.
Well, from less dangerous to rather dangerous riots and revolutions that you produced for BBC Three. That was about the overthrow of Colonel Gaddafi in Libya?
Yes, that's right.
How did you manage to get into?
Gosh, well, that was just soon after Gaddafi had been deposed. And so actually it suddenly opened up, and it was very easy to get in there because people were interested in what was happening.
Life must have been terrible.
It was awful. I mean, we literally arrived there about 3 weeks after Gaddafi had been caught in that under the sewer. And it was chaos. A lot of the fighters were still returning from being on the front line. And so it was actually quite a dangerous place to be because there was lots and lots of young men with guns everywhere.
Gun-toting people.
Gun-toting people. So it was chaos, basically. But that was our story, really, to find out what had just happened, what it meant to the people, what they had been through to fight for the so-called Arab Spring. And it was an interesting time to be there because you could see how society was in the process of trying to win back their own sort of country, really, from a leader who had, for all intents and purposes, been a dictator.
Were people happy?
You know, that's what I found surprising. Yes, they were. I grew up actually admiring Gaddafi, if I may be honest. You know, he was somebody who stood up to the West, and most of us who were involved on a political level in, you know, the affairs of the developing world, we saw Gaddafi as quite a hero. But when I got there, and I discovered actually the people were not happy with the way he was conducting affairs because he was quite oppressive with his own people. For us on the outside, we saw him as this kind of grand figure, you know, who was standing up to the West. But for the people within the country, they found him to be a bit of a tyrant. So when he was overthrown, there was a lot of jubilation.
There's a very interesting film of yours about South American journey with Jonathan Dimbleby, the great filmmaker. That was for BBC One or BBC Two? Fresh one, BBC Two. And you traveled through Colombia and Venezuela?
Yes.
And this film won a LATA award in 2011.
Yes, this was a wonderful thing to do. It was Jonathan Dimbleby's journey through South America. Again, we wanted to show South America as it is today. You know.
Ruhi, we have to take a break here. When we come back, we'll talk about this, and then we'll go and see some of the clips of your other films, okay? Thank you for being with us. We need to go to a commercial break now, and when we come back, we'll continue our journey in Venezuela and Cambodia and Colombia. Thank you.